Okay, all right. I don't think I printed off all right, so let's call this work session to order on March, what is it, 19th? March 19th at 3:07. Okay, and with that, we're gonna first talk about the water main extension discussion with Rick. Thank you again, Rick, for coming on. Mitch, do you want me to give the board over to you? Okay.
No, I would give it to Rick so that he can put things directly on the screen.
Is that good with you, Rick? Do you have that ability, or do you need us to put this stuff in?
If you guys might be technically better suited at that, if you
Okay.
guys could go ahead and call up.
Give me a second then to call it up. So.
Yep. Start with either one of the maps first, and we'll leave the spreadsheet for last.
Okay, just a moment.
Okay.
And I can pull it up too if you'd rather, Mitch.
It doesn't matter either way. If you have them and you want to do that, that's fine.
In theory, I have them. We all know I can be challenged at times myself, so I am getting better, but
Rick, which one do you want? Do you want the Ecwag 2 ER?
Let's go with that one first.
Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna do it then, Mitch, or you want me to?
I could do it. That's fine.
Okay, so I'll give you the control.
Okay. Share screen.
May host.
Okay.
All right, you are now host.
Okay.
Which means that you have to let people in if they come in, I believe. So just remember that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm moving to it right now. Everyone can see this. It says DEQ draft dated 2/13/2017. Right here.
I can see it.
Yep.
Perfect.
And that's the one you want, Rick, correct?
Yes. Yep. I'll
Okay.
start with this one. Well, I appreciate everybody today to I'll give you an opportunity to, or I'll present kind of where we're at with some background information on developing these various phases for the water main, and then kind of how we've been tracking them up to this point, what we plan on seeing this coming season as far as work. And then, and again, at any time, if anybody has a question or whatever, jump in and I'll answer whatever you have. But so essentially, and it's possibly that Ann might have seen this before, because this actually predates us coming on as the township's engineer. But this essentially, what you have in front of you is the map that DEQ at the time, now Eagle, had developed that kind of outlined the area of concern for the groundwater contamination from PFAS essentially from the air base, and what impacted the local residential and also probably some commercial. I know there's commercial in here, wells in the area. And initially what was identified as an area where alternative water supplies or a water supply would be required. This map essentially also was used, I believe, by Oscoda Public Health to initially, or the initial public health notice that they sent out about the concerns over the drinking water or out of the well system. And then also what they generally have identified as the area where they will not permit any new wells being drilled and operated for the future. The initial, I think, work, or the initial public health thing is that, that either bottled water or filtered water or whatever in this area was an immediate alternative to look at. But as I said, again, for the township and such to start looking at alternative water supply in this area. Before we leave this map, this, as you said, was dated in February of 2017. Eagle has continually monitored this area. Some of you are, I think, I'm sure aware, but they have several monitoring wells throughout this area. I don't know if they're expanding that or not as far as additional monitoring wells. I'm not sure on that, but they continue to monitor it. And as the boundaries change, they continually update it. Talking to Ms. Armbruster out of the Bay City Eagle office back in the fall, when she provided us the last update, they're not necessarily updating this map physically. What they're doing is they're providing tables that show additional locations of monitoring wells and such, and which what we do is we superimpose it on this map to see how the boundaries are changing and such. And in all practical purposes, the boundary hasn't changed much since this map. There's a little bit, I think, along the shoreline north that has expanded a little bit. And then there is some going out River Road and such, as it will relate to one of the phases that we'll be talking about here a little bit. But essentially, it's fairly accurate still, and we use this for pretty much all of the funding applications that we've submitted up to this point. We also, kind of in combination of this with RCAP, as far as what part of this piece of the USRD, they provide us on an annual basis an updated environmental report that usually is required to be submitted along with any of the funding applications that we submit, just so that on the environmental side, it's current as far as the reasoning behind the funding applications. So with that, we can go to the next map, Mitch.
Okay, so you want the water
Phases?
distribution phase map?
Yes, please. Okay.
Turn this here.
I believe most of you have seen this map. The other thing, and I did send it out as part of the packet for today's meeting. What we have done here is kind of taken that plume map, which we just seen, and built upon this map, which I believe Spicer might have put together at the beginning of the phase 1 project. And essentially what we've done here is phase 1, which was Forest and Van Etten. That was the project that was completed main construction-wise in 2018. We had some services and some repairs to that in 2019, of which you're familiar with. Phase 2 was the Ecwag project of last summer out Loud Drive, and we had attempted to include Woodland as part of that. And Woodland, we weren't able to construct last year because there was some right-of-way issues, but we've gotten that resolved. Then the rest of the phases, A through H, what we did was, and I believe Ann might have some history on this, is when Ecwag first came out, the funding limits for these types of projects was $500,000, and that's what the township was able to secure for phase 1. Then there was through, I think maybe possibly Congressman Kilde's office or whatever from the federal level, that funding got increased to $1 million per Ecwag grant application. So prior to phase 2 that we completed last year, we developed the rest of this map based on, like I said, the groundwater contamination map, and tried to capture these projects, these phases, in either individually $1 million kind of project cost estimate just for the water main portion of the work, or $500,000 phases where, you know, either if the grants went back to 500,000, we would have a project identified, or we could put a couple of projects together to add up to the million. So that's how phases A through H were developed and kind of put together. So this map was put together. Again, no necessary, you know, A through H was not a priority list. It was based on just going down through the alphabet and putting these together as we added them to it. And we color coded it so you can kind of see where this is at. Another component that has obviously surfaced as this goes is, as we expand the distribution system, we also need to keep in mind that good practice, 10 state standards, is also to loop water mains as we build them. So as another component to this, and a component to some of the phases, we do have included in there, it doesn't necessarily show up on the map, but the fact that we have planned or whatever to loop the water mains so that we don't have a dead end water main, which is not good practice, and for a couple of reasons. One, you know, this is a highly seasonal area, so you know, during the summer months or whatever, you have activity on the mains, which will keep the water flowing and such. F&V operations has a program in place that they use those long reach dead end mains, that they go out and open hydrants to keep the water flowing and fresh in these mains. But again, as a long-term, I'll say, fix to that, looping these mains so that they are tied into maybe more active areas and such, that the water will continue to move around, and less of a seasonal maintenance issue for the future. Again, to better serve the project, if a water main were to break, you have the ability to shut off valves and still service an area and isolate the area where it's broke, which is obviously helpful in providing service to those areas, but also fire protection. So we have included that all in these phases as far as we build them out to take into that consideration. The other thing in general, like I said, we kind of built this around the USDA Ecwag funding, just because that was the one that was up front, and it was a grant, so there would be minimal local costs to the project, because obviously, as everybody's aware, this is no fault of the township, no fault of its residents, that this groundwater contamination has come about, and so therefore the philosophy behind it, and I believe the philosophy is still there, is that, you know, if we can get these projects built to provide your residents and your commercial businesses safe drinking water, but at a minimal cost to the township, that is the way to go. Again, because you weren't the fault of it. And then also, we are tracking the local costs as far as to the township and to any of the residents. So if by chance the federal government were to step up, if by chance the Air Force were to step up and contribute at some point in the future, we will be able to capture, obviously those funds and then apply them even retroactively back to other portions of past projects to offset the cost that was incurred, like I said, by either the residents or the township. So I guess with that, Mitch, if you want to go to the spreadsheet, I'll kind of go through the phases and kind of how we're tracking this. And then I'll go through what we have on the current schedule for 2021. So.
Hey, Rick, this bill, if,
Yes.
is that a real possibility that if the Air Force were to step up to, because in the past, the Air Force is regulated by the EPA set of 70 parts per trillion for drinking water.
Yes.
Michigan has passed a new MCL with much lower standards for PFOA and PFOS of 8 and 16. So if in Michigan has adopted those standards, so if the Air Force were to recognize those standards, there would be a lot of areas where the water was tested, but because it didn't hit the 70 parts per trillion, it was considered not a problem. So some of these places where we've put the lines in and people have had to pay for them, do you honestly think we'd be able to collect from the Air Force if they were to recognize those lower standards?
Well, again,
I mean, I hate to put you on the spot. I know that
No,
you don't have the authority over that, but
no, and again, obviously it would be, up to them based on, how they define it and what they would do. But what we have done as far as the projects that we've completed and any out-of-pocket costs associated with those phases that the township has incurred. And then, like I said, I'll talk about the residents' costs for services up here next. But everything that we've put together, those grants and those potential loans and all that stuff, is that after the fact, if funding becomes available to the township, yes, you can use that and go back and either pay to residents or pay off the principal on loans or account for it in your funding, your departments and such, and cover those costs. So we're keeping as many doors open, I guess, as possible. I guess that's what I wanted to share there, so that if that funding or if other grant funding becomes available after some of these projects are completed, we are asking the question and getting clarification as we do it, that if funding becomes available, we can take that funding back into the past and cover expenses.
wow, that would be great.
So that was one of the things that we wanted to, to make sure as every one of these that we have undertaken to this point, that we've tried to, and so far have been successful to get that clause included in any of those funding applications and such. So with the spreadsheet in front of you, what we've done here, and this is a work in process. What we do is we've got it broken into each of the phases. As we manipulate the phases around based on funding available and such, we keep this updated. The columns, as you go from right to left, obviously the far left column are the major components of each of the phases. If any of you ever have seen one of the bid sheets for these projects, there's obviously a lot more line items in these bids, but for the sake of tracking here, we've just put in the key components, and then we keep updating the unit price to take into account all those other items, whether they're driveway repairs, roadway repairs, lawn repairs and all that stuff, all the little miscellaneous hydrants and all that stuff. We just included in here. Otherwise, we'd have a spreadsheet that was 50 pages long and more difficult to manage. So from this perspective, what we use this for, to track this and to just what we were just saying, making sure that we track what the property owners are contributing to this, what the township is contributing, and then what other funding sources we get. This gives us just a snapshot per phase of what's been done. And then as the bids come in, we're updating the unit prices based on the current bidding climate. We are seeing, even from these first two phases, projects that are being bid this year, the bid prices are coming down to some degree. So there's more and more contractors back in the business and such. So that's beneficial to the projects. We can get more done with the funds that we are securing. So with this, starting off at the top in black, there's phase one. And basically phase one, between the Ecwag funding that the township secured in the amount of $500,000, the total project cost for phase one. And again, phase one's a little bit sketchy for us because we weren't involved in the entire process. So we've tried to piece these numbers together as closely as we can, and we're going to continue to modify these as we can get information. But phase one was roughly about 718,000 as far as cost for the main and engineering and all the other components that go into these types of projects. The township was able to secure 500,000, as I said, through a USDA RD Ecwag grant. And then in addition to that, picked up essentially the rest of the phase one, I'll say local costs, was the MEDC, or the state legislatures secured a combination of a $325,000 grant, and then also a follow-up one to that, a $500,000 grant. So a total of $825,000 that we were essentially able to pick up all of the services that were required, or that were part of, or that all of the residents that needed services on phase one, we were able to pick up the cost of those and cover that by the grant, and then some of the other miscellaneous administration costs. So between the 500,000 Ecwag, and we used up roughly 218,000 of that 825 for phase one, which the ultimate goal is those far right columns down at the bottom. There was essentially, as far as we can tell, no cost to the property owners and essentially no cost to the township to complete phase one. So moving on to phase two that we completed last year, the next group down there, same thing here is cost of the project there is on the left. We tried to capture all of that. Roughly overall cost, 2.2 million. Of that, the township was able to secure $1 million Ecwag grant. We utilized the remaining piece of that 825,000, which was 607,090 from the state legislators, as far as the grant that they pulled together for the township and was administered through MEDC. Then over on the far right column is, and again, this is if all of the services that we have available to us in phase two, if those were all installed. And right now, the best figure we have is it's roughly averaging out for the property owners at $4,500 a service. So that totaled the 517,000 well, actually 531,000. That would be the total that would be, if all services were installed, that would be encumbered by the residents or the property owners. And roughly, again, these figures, some of these have to be verified yet. We believe that that left about 102,000 that was left to be covered out of township funds. Like I said, we're verifying that 4,500, and obviously we're keeping track of the number of services that were installed so far. And I believe the last number I received from the billing department was, I think, 62 of the 122 services potentially have been installed. And I believe there's a few more that are probably scheduled for this coming summer. That's a key number that we're tracking, because if we're successful on the S2 R2 grant that we applied for on behalf of the township through Eagle, which is part of that, the governor's initiative of 500 million for local infrastructure. If the township is successful, and I believe the number that we put in for that was 5.5 million, we will be able to go back and capture this 531,000 and either put in the rest of the services that haven't been installed, or reimburse the property owners for those services that they have paid out of pocket so far. Because part of that grant is we included all past services, all current services that are coming up on projects that are scheduled for this coming summer, and also future projects, but also even past ones where the township has main going down the roadways in front of the houses or the properties. Those services can also be included. So with the idea that if successful, that we would be able to hook up all of the properties that one, want the water, two, that need it, or as I said, as their wells fail, then the funds would be there to, like I said, as far as I know, they're not going to be permitted to install a new well. They would then have to tie into the water main that's in front of their property. So that's how we're tracking. And like I said, as we complete a project, then we're continually updating that based on the I'll say the audit that we're working with the township, primarily getting help from Tammy as she digs up information, or the billing office, or Doug Moen as such, to have these as accurate as possible so that we have a running spreadsheet. Now, the upcoming, so phase A, which would be scheduled for this summer, phase A will pick up also the portion of Woodland Drive that we tried to build last summer, but we couldn't because we didn't have the real estate or the right of way. We did take care of that last summer as far as securing that right of way for the township through the quick or quiet title process. We worked with the district court and Mr. Eppert at the time to secure that real estate. So now that is included in this. So phase A and Woodland scheduled for construction this summer. This is one that we have kind of dual funding opportunities that are playing out in front of us. We submitted this last fall, late last summer, for the USDA Ecwag grant, assuming that the $1 million threshold was still going to be available to us. We found out, I believe, about the time that you, the new board, and you, Ann, came on board, that the $1 million component went away, and the threshold for this one dropped significantly down to 150,000. And that other funding then obviously would have to pick up and fill the gap. So at that time, we were able to roll this into the DWRF funding process that we had ongoing at the time. And also, we also included it in the S2 R2 grant application. So no matter what kind of plays out here, we've got the funding in place. We just don't know exactly which source it's going to come from. But again, this project will be constructed this summer. Anticipating, if it goes through the DWRF process, notice to proceed will take place shortly after closing on that funding, which is scheduled for mid-June. The advertising for this project and such is out there right now. The bid opening is scheduled for April 8th. And so we'll know who the contractor is, what the prices are, and that will also help us on which funding source that that this ends up with. We should also know, we're hoping sometime this month, on that S2 E2 grant, and if we're successful on behalf of the township for that, that's going to take up a lot of these projects. And basically, obviously, we're not going to be able to build them all in 1 year, but we won't have to go through essentially any more funding exercises or whatever, and we will be able to schedule these over the next 2 or 3 years to get these taken care of. But irregardless of that funding, like I said, Phase A and Woodland will be constructed this summer. The next phase, Phase B, and you'll see on each one of these the local roads that we're taking care of as part of these. Also, we've got included in here the estimated number of services that are included. So we got Phase B that will also be under construction this summer. That one in the tune of, like I said, construction-wise, dollar value with administration, engineering, 701,000 and change. Phase C, D, E, and F are funded through the DWRF application process, but those are for years 2, 3, and 4 of the DWRF funding. The significance of that is that similar to what the township has received is on the sewer side, your SRF project for the sanitary sewer, you were classified as a disadvantaged community based on the economic analysis for the sanitary sewer. Part of that is you have had past debt on the sanitary sewer. You've had past SRF and USDA loans for that. And that qualified you for, I believe it's like 1.33 million in loan forgiveness on that. For the DWRF, because you don't have history of debt on that side of your utility, getting through this first year of projects this coming summer qualifies you of having debt, and you'll be for years 2, 3, and 4 of DWRF, you'll be in line for principal forgiveness on those projects. If you don't get the S2R2, which again kind of eliminates all of it because you're getting funding for all of those projects. So that takes you through Phase F. Phase G is because of the size of it and the location, we included Phase G and Also, as far as the Ray to Colbath section of the water main along 41, which gets us out to the Colbath subdivision out there on the north end of Van Etten. We've also got that included in this summer's projects. So you'll have phase A, phase B, phase G over by the schools. Part of the 41 project from Ray to Colbath under construction this summer, and realistically, some of that construction will probably leak into the spring of 2022. But we'll have all of that done. And then again, if we're successful with what we've got out there, we should have everything else scheduled and possibly under 100% grant funding through the S2 R2.
Sorry, can I interrupt just for 1 minute,
Yep.
Rick?
Yes,
Just to make sure I got it. You said phase A and phase B, and
yes,
then phase G.
yep.
And then what part of F41 are this summer?
Right there, the first section there on that last phase H,
Okay,
Colbath Road, 41 to, or I'm sorry, right above that, Ray to Colbath.
Rear Road to Colbath? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And what that does is that hooks up with the main that the township installed, I think back in the 2000, maybe 8, 2007
Mhm.
timeframe. And then that'll get us out to Colbath. And then the rest of phase H will get us down into that subdivision there on the north end of Van Etten. And again, that was one of the areas since 2017, that map that I showed you, that there were some monitoring wells out there that spiked on the groundwater contamination. So that's why that area got added to potential water main funding. So, but the other thing with this, again, the way we've got this all set up is that at any point up until the closing of any of these grants or whatever, the township has the ability to back out of it. You know, you're not locked into anything until you close on it. And then, like I said, our goal is those two right-hand columns to as close to zeroing those out so that there is no property or township expense to this. That is the goal, and that is the underlying purpose of the grants and the loans with principal forgiveness and all of that that we are proceeding with. So I know that is a pretty fast and quick maybe update as far as where we're at. A lot of information to digest. I understand that. Open it up to any questions, and I can also provide any information in the future as we get closer to closing out any of these phases.
Are we out to bid on all of those right now?
We are out to bid on A and Woodland,
Okay.
B, G, and that portion on 41.
Right,
from
so
Ray to
the
Colbath.
section of phase H, that's rear road to Colbath.
Correct. And
Right.
that is out for advertising. The bid opening is scheduled for April 8th at 3 o'clock at the township offices. And in addition, we are also opening the bids for the CWSRF, the sanitary sewer projects, on that same day.
Okay.
So then with those bids in front of us, the rest of the kind of the funding, the mix will shake out and all of that. And then between Eagle and the township and all that stuff, the final documentation and all that stuff is put in place between then and the closings, which are scheduled for early June.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick, I had just one
Yes.
question, comment kind of a thing. I see in all these phases, you've included the cost for the service leads so that all the costs for the residents would be covered. under
Correct.
all these projects.
Correct.
But I do know under the USDA, if we were to get money from them, that money's not allowed to be used for that portion, correct?
Correct.
So-
USDA is, they do not allow for the service leads. We can include all of the meter pits. So township, they will, like we did on Loud, we bought or we included all of the meter pits as part of that project. The service leads on private property, USDA will not fund, but Eagle and the DWRF and the S2 R2 grants will.
Okay, so we're hoping that in these, if we can get some USDA funding, we can also then get some additional funding from some of these other programs.
Correct.
So we can follow this program that you've laid out here for these
Yes.
phases, so that the residents shouldn't have an expense to hook up
That is correct.
for these phases.
We're every day we're looking at any and all opportunities. I believe it was Ann that forwarded to me, Dale Kilde's office is looking for projects for the township to add, for his list.
Operations. Yeah.
Yep, so we're gonna be looking at providing, and obviously we'll run that by the township for your approval before we recommend that being submitted to his office. So so every rock is being overturned and all that stuff. And even if we're redundant in finding sources, like I said, the more the merrier, I guess, is the way we're approaching it. Because there probably will always be some little expense or whatever that might fall through the cracks that another grant will be able to pick up.
Are we also looking for funding still for the areas where we currently have water main and an extension isn't needed, but people are on a private well and having to, pay out of pocket costs for their service lines? I guess I don't see them as any different as the
No,
places that.
we included those numbers and those locations in that S2 R2 grant.
Okay,
So if we're successful there, that one will pick up all new lines, new services, and then also existing services that are needed to hook up to mains that are already in front of their property.
okay. Because I know that was a concern a few years ago when this first started to a lot of the people on US 23, like around the Family Fair area and so on, where they're, they were given up to $1,100 for their tap fee, but that's all it covered. It didn't cover their meter pit. It didn't cover any service lines and stuff.
Yeah,
And they were, not happy.
Yeah, in that grant application, we included the cost of the meter pit, and we were conservative on the length of service. So we went on the high end of the service cost. And I think the high end of what we've gotten from John Henry as far as what he's installed on phase one was, I think, $6,500. So the meter pit, $1,100, I think, is the fee we put, or the number we put in there, plus a $6,500 allowance for the service. And again, those aren't locked in, so if the costs were, more for one resident because of the distance and less for another, we would be working all of those numbers together.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, I appreciate you putting this together so it's in one place and you're sending that out this afternoon. It's
And as we update this spreadsheet, and like I said, we're right in the middle of it right now. We get the bids in on April 8th. We'll be updating it again. I will continually send this out for your use. I'll send it through Mitch so that you guys have as close to a living, breathing document as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Yep. Any other questions or anything?
As far, I had one, as far as private well abandonment,
Yes.
proper capping, would any of the funding that we're seeking cover that?
Yes.
It would.
Yes. Yeah. The way we worded for the services, and what we did is on phase one, I can't remember the well company out of Hale. which seems to be the company that services this area the most.
Web, maybe? I'm
Yes,
not sure.
Webb. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, it was Webb. And I think the price we got for it was like $650 for an approved well abandonment. They follow the public health guidelines.
Okay,
So we included that in there, and as part of the residents, and I'll use Loud as an example, the ones that hooked up so far and the ones that will be hooking up on Loud, they have to do the well abandonment. If they do not, part of the service hookup is that their well is disconnected, and then they have to let Doug Moen know that they are going to use their well for irrigation. And then what that triggers for F&V, the opportunity that they can go in on whatever schedule they want or they have set up, that they can make sure that there is they inspect it to make sure that there's no cross connection in the future, and that separation between the well and the domestic water supply is maintained.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
They're not mandated. It was my understanding before, unless something's changed, that you were not mandated to abandon the well, but we are encouraging, correct?
We are encouraging, but not mandating. That is
Okay.
correct. And
Great.
again, none of the residents where the new mains are have to hook up to the new water main.
Right,
The only thing what we're doing, and that's another thing that we do, is we send out a notice prior to each of these construction projects to all of the property owners. And those actually notices will be going out here shortly to let them know that it's coming, to let them know kind of the tentative schedule. And the fact again, they don't have to hook up, but to remind them in that letter that if their well were to fail, they cannot put down or get a new permit for a new well, and then they would have to hook up. So
right. Okay,
kind of as an example, I think we had maybe 4 or 5 that actually failed or started to fail last summer during the construction on Loud Drive. And then obviously they had the opportunity to hook up. So,
that's weird.
yep.
Well, that's where it would come into play. It'd be nice if we could get the funding so
Yes.
that all the residents wouldn't have to undergo a cost.
Right.
Because I know for some residents here in the township, it would be a real struggle to come up with, $4,000 or so to hook up to the water. So if we can get the funding somehow to take care of all of that for all the residents there, even the ones where we've already done the mains, like on Loud Drive, that would be great.
Right.
But we can only work with what we have, I guess. So,
right.
yeah.
And kind of along that line, Mr. Palmer, is that in the past, MEDC has had grant programs for homeowners to apply to for home improvements that because Oscoda is classified as a disadvantaged community, those grant programs have been available in the past. There's none going on right now, but they have been in the past, and we're keeping an eye on it, where I think they can apply up to, it's somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 that they can apply. They have to apply for it themselves, but it's for any home improvements, roofs, siding, or water service leads and stuff would also fall under that same category. So we're monitoring that, and if and when that would ever to become available again, we will obviously let the township know, and we can publicize that. And if there's any that fall through the cracks in the future.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
Okay, there's no other questions. I'll leave you to the rest of your township business.
All
Have a
right.
great
All
weekend.
right,
Yes, you
Thanks.
too. Bye-bye.
all right. We'll just let, Mitch, you want to turn it? Oh, you gave it back to me. That was quick. You says that you already gave it back to me. All right, so I'm gonna share the screen. Get rid of that. Let me find the agenda again. Sorry. Okay, well anyways, we're back to the agenda. Let me just find it. Does everybody see it now? Oh, it's giant. What the heck? That didn't work out. Sorry. I don't know what's going on. Just seems like it, is it giant in your, or like, can you read it? The share screen? Is it the agenda?
It's just really blown up.
How about now?
Didn't change. Oh, there you go.
There it changed.
Okay, so is that good? Everybody can read it? Call to
Yep.
order, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. So we're now on to the discussion on the meeting packet. I did receive a text from Tim Cummings that he had a work call come up last minute, so he will not be participating. I don't know if he'll be zooming in afterwards, but just to let you know. Okay. All right. So with that, let's start with the packet. We have the first public hearing on there. And then we go to the meeting minutes. Any discussions on those?
Yeah, one on the work session for March 5th.
Mm-hmm.
We have Mr. Cummings as being present and absent.
I think he came in late. So we just need to, wasn't that
I
the
thought
one?
that was Mr. Westerbar that came late,
Yeah, I came in late.
Oh,
at
maybe that
one.
was it. Sorry.
but has him listed as both present and absent. I don't think he can be both.
Well, depending on the day, there's times I can be both, but I would say you're correct, Bill. Okay, anything else on the March 5th? All right, on the March 8th, there was a couple things that I had already given to Josh for closed session. We had the motion to go into, but we did not have the motion to come out of identified. So he adjusted that, or will be adjusting. I mean, I think he emailed everybody the changes, but it was, I had in my notes that Mr. Palmer supported by a motion by Mr. Westerbarth to come out of closed session. Everybody okay with adding that?
Yeah, that was correct.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
All right. And then there was just a couple other, the other ones that I noted on page 3 was the resolution 2021-07. I had that Mr. Spencer supported a motion by Mr. Palmer.
That's correct.
Okay. And then under rezoning request, I had that Mr. Palmer supported a motion by Mr. Spencer.
That's correct according to the notes I have.
Bill, you too?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. And then I had just, I guess, didn't feel that the summary for my board comment was 100%. So I had redone that, and I can read it to you now if you would like. But he did put that in there and emailed it out.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to read it or just go with what was sent out.
I can read it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else?
No, you picked up all the ones I had in.
I took better notes this time, Bill.
Yeah.
Except for I write things down backwards. I'm writing down who makes the motion and then the second after it. And you know, it's kind of written backwards. So I have to back myself up a little bit. Anyways. Okay. So we're good on the meeting minutes then? Or comments, I should say. And we have payment of bills. Any questions? And actually, let me just double check. Jamie is on vacation this week, but Jane is zoomed in and she is on the line. I'm just gonna ask her to unmute. Told her we were starting at 4. She's there. Are you there, Jane?
I'm here.
All right, thank you again for attending. So if
welcome.
anybody's got any questions on the prepaid run, March 16th, any questions on those? Or additional information that we need before Monday?
I have none.
No, everything looked good to me. There was the one row invoice that I questioned at the last, in the last packet. And I see that was in Jane at the last meeting assured that that would be taken care of, and I see it was, so everything's good.
Okay, cool.
I see we had a membership renewal for Mai Tais for Sergeant McNichol.
For my time.
It does- it's not- it doesn't
sign up
actually
for that?
That's what I thought too. It doesn't actually say Mai Tai. I just wondered what that was. A membership
Only
to
if
what?
only if they're killer Mai Tais. They used to serve it when I went to Ferris at a bar, but yeah.
Hey.
All right.
Do we know what that membership was? I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying no or anything. I'm just curious.
Point it out as we speak. See if I get any info off the invoice. Michigan Association of Traffic Accident Investigators.
Oh, nice. Okay. So is that,
2021 membership dues, $40 per member.
huh, cool.
That's not nearly as good as the Mai Tai Club, so.
Yeah, no, kind of lame, kind of lame. Okay, how about any questions on the March 23rd run, 24,000? Anything there? No? Wow,
None
too
for me.
efficient, Jane, good job.
Oh, thank you.
Great job.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You're free to,
Bye.
I was gonna say you're free to hang out or you can take off. I'm guessing you're gonna take
Oh,
off.
I think I'll go have a Mai Tai.
All
Hey,
right,
There you go.
all right,
where are you
thank
going? We'll see you there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then we also are gonna have subcommittee reports. Roe will be there for Rick today and Monday. And then Todd Dickerson will be zooming in as well, so. Then we're on to the superintendent's report. The first one, we'll go ahead, Mitch, and I'll chime in.
Let's talk about the Alcona Health Center tap fees revisited.
Yeah,
This thing is, even though we're talking about water, it's muddy. It's very muddy. My game plan for Monday is to allow Rick Freeman to walk this through. Their firm had direct involvement in this twist of numbers and turn of numbers. And if, as you can see from even email correspondence, there was, again, it was like another kind of like misstep. And then a correction had to be made again of like, are you sure you got all the everything straight? I want him to slow go through this with you and the public, because it is quite murky, about what the tap fee basically refund will be per piece. It, like I said, it is a thick, ugly set of numbers, and then there was read wrong, then reread wrong, and then we thought we had it sorted out, and then we asked him again, and he even gave us a different answer like a third time. We think we have this all clean. We have to get this clean, obviously, for audit purposes. But that is what my game plan is with this, because there's more to this than just simple numbers. I think it would be good for you to hear how we got to this point. There was an original service request for a certain size, and then there was a request for basically an upsize for fire suppression, and that's kind of where everything kind of went sour as far as calculating. And and then it just kind of went downhill from there. So that's my game plan with that. And I'm looking back at my own superintendent report. I was going to try to answer it, and then I stopped and I put the word "as," and I didn't answer that sentence. I think it was because I knew it was too murky to answer easily. So I'm asking him to just create a chart of where it started and where we ended, and then he can throw that up and talk it through.
Right.
But I think
I
if you don't, I hate to say, if we don't, you'll get lost along the way.
Please just get it in a summary format. There's just way too much verbiage going through all this
Yeah,
stuff.
well, I mean, I think it, we definitely need to, according to Rick, we need to clean up our ordinance a little bit. He finds it hard to read. So we need to clean that up. And then based on some conversations with Doug Moen, we need to, and then I got an example from what Oscoda Township does. I think it would be helpful to bake in some of the things that they have for associated costs. Because you have a tap fee, but then nothing in that talks about meter pit or anything else. So we just need to be a little bit more clear so that everybody moving forward knows what they're signing up for from the very beginning. And then there was just some, some questions by the contractor that were asked of me, like, just after the election, actually, they had thought that there should be a different rate based on fire suppression tap versus regular water. And we can't find anything internal in regard to that. So anyways, but then it does boil down to an indirect versus a direct, and the two charges, and why there was confusion there. So I think Rick can explain that better.
All right.
Just as an FYI, the auditors have it booked, quote unquote, i.e. the credit back. So we are covered in that way. We won't need to do any kind of a journal thing there. All right.
All right. The fire truck bid response, you can see we had one bid. So we'll be asking that you accept that bid at the meeting.
Anybody have any questions on that or need additional information for Monday?
No, I like that it's under what we budgeted, and it's also for a local, with a local dealer. I like both those.
What kind of trucks are they getting?
They'll be Ram trucks.
So they're just regular pickups. It's just the fire department needs some couple pickups.
Yeah.
3/4 ton pickups with the utility boxes.
One is for brush purposes. The other is for dive purposes.
And this is just the basic cost of the vehicle. Is there any additional equipment that has to be put onto these things after we buy them?
It includes the Knapheide utility box.
Yeah.
It's out of Flint.
Remember that the funds that we get for this do not include things like decals and some of that. So some of that 80,000 will probably be used for that purpose as well. So there'll be some decal, obviously decaling the trucks, and I think on one of them, and looking at it last night at the fire meeting, I think one of the sirens on one of the existing trucks, it would be probably smart for us to replace it than it would be to transfer it. The other, I think we could transfer. So it might be some small items like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I was gonna say, as you get from model to model of vehicles, sometimes component pieces that used to fit on certain trucks may not fit well on others. And while we may be able to adjust them, there may be some items where we may have to, have a module or something put in that fits that particular truck's specifications or dimensions.
What color are they going to be?
They shall be red.
Excellent. Fire engine red?
Well, as close as the rest of our fleet. So
Do we, are we getting rid of vehicles at the same time? Are we decommissioning something or going to sell something?
yes,
Replacing things?
we will be. Yes.
Okay, so we need to have a policy on how if we're gonna do those on that. Wasn't that my bid or something when we sell stuff or whatever? We need to look at that.
Localized, honestly, with these and their condition, I'd probably go to a more localized bid maybe with an electronic alternate bid system too. So
Okay, as long as we know that we gotta find a good quality home for them too. Okay. All right,
the first, the meter purchase request, that's pretty straightforward. These are just things we need and need to make these purchases for us to continue to put meters into the system.
everybody have the material they need to make that decision, or everything good?
How
Yep.
many meters are we getting for 11,000?
One. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
That sounds about right, huh? All right.
Without me looking real fast.
And 10 inch and a half, 7 2-inch,
Somehow or another, I
20
can't
inch
find
and a
that.
half.
Thank you. I'm trying to
The
get down
hose.
to it. Yeah, it's a number of different meter types.
Okay.
So
And is there a specific use for these that we're gonna use right away, or is this just for stock?
no, these are installs.
Okay, all right.
We're moving ahead with installs.
So
Okay.
so all of the equipment that we're purchasing here is already spoken for.
Yeah, they're to be placed as soon as we receive them.
Do we have a stock of extra components for so that we don't, so that we've got a ready to go kit, if you will?
Like, do we keep a few pieces and parts and spares? Yes, but nothing in these quantities.
And are these residential meters or commercial ones, or is there a difference?
Most of them are residential in size. A couple of these are commercial. Once you get up in like 1.5, and so residential would be like a 5/8 meter. Some places even refer to them as 3/4 meters, if you've heard that other term. So
Sorry, I either get too hot or too cold.
very exciting. All right.
All right, so next on is the
Yes.
Old Orchard Park furnace and hot water heater
Yeah.
installation.
So with the Resonation of Public Works Department personnel, we do not have a licensed person to install the furnace and water heaters. And as it is a public building, you must have licensed people do that work. So we asked to have quotes secured for that purpose, and we did receive 4 of them. The recommendation is to accept the bid from Huron Shores Plumbing and Heating to perform that work.
Why are we recommending Huron Shores over any of the other ones that bidded?
They're all qualified to do it, and it was strictly cost.
They're $4,100.
What were the other bids?
They're in the packet, but 45.25 was the next highest. Goyette,
All the
which
way
was
up to
Goyette.
81.
Yeah, and then it went up to
And as high
81.
as 81.21.
Wow.
Again, these, I hate to say that they're all busy, so these prices.
I'm surprised we got 4.
Yeah, well, and these prices are probably, I will say they're high, but it's because they have more than enough work, and they'll do it for a price.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Okay. Next is Public Works Resonation hiring. I'll be asking you to concur with my acceptance of Keith Furrow's resignation. And then I'll be asking you to also move Timothy Justice from part-time to full-time for the Department of Public Works. And just kind of an additional note, I'm developing a job description for the other full-time opening within the DPW and would be advertising that position through multiple venues.
My question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
No, I have not found a suitable job description for these positions. They're pretty sketchy, to be honest with you. They're pretty light, and I think they should be much more rigorous.
My only question is, do we have a policy in a township when a township position comes of opening that we have to post it to internal employees first and then post it to the outside? Is there any policy that exists?
No, there is no policy of any type within the personnel manual.
I had asked the same question, Steve. I know in the past we have posted whether or not we had an internal candidate interested. We posted it and that internal candidate then applied. But there isn't a, apparently there isn't a policy that says one way or the other. But I know that when just before or just after the election, I saw Ken Kahila down at the beach working with Tim, and Ken couldn't say enough about how Tim had what an employee he had been over the last couple of years. So I know that they're all very impressed with the skill set.
Yeah, he's our long-term part-time employee. And then when Mr. Kitchens, he had to step down, Tim was asked to kind of step forward and take on even more responsibility, which he has done.
And moving forward, are we going to try and find another employee that would have the HVAC certification to be able to install and work on furnaces? Or are we gonna take what we can get and just hire that out to a local agency?
My opinion, Bill, in looking at it kind of in totality, is that we might be better served looking for heavy equipment operator experience and other types of experience like that. That serves us more on the day-to-day than an occasional, I hate to say, water heater replacement or something of that nature.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that, Mitch.
Yeah, while our personnel can maintain our systems, when it comes to repair and all that, then I would be looking more at hiring that out, because most, like I said, an analysis of what their day-to-day functions are and what their month-to-month functions, it would seem like looking for other skill sets would be more prudent. Not that if somebody came forward and had it, it wouldn't be nice, but I think that we'd be better served if we had someone with a CDL and we had somebody with heavy equipment experience.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think, it's nice if you have somebody that has that HVAC certification, but there certainly are a number of companies around that we can RFP to, take care of those things when they come up.
I kind of liken this to IT work. And so Jeremy and if Tim were here, their ears should be ringing. Josh, you're probably ringing too. Because of the nature of the type of work they do, and because updates and advancements occur pretty regular, I can't see where having a specialist like that can't completely 100% focus on that function would stay, if you will, ahead of the curve on new techniques, new technologies, new methods. And I would rather hire HVAC professionals who that's what they do, handle that, and let our people work and focus on more of our, I'll say the dirt work and the day-to-day part of our function.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think that's a smart way to go for that. Number one, I think it'll be easier to find someone, and number two, it'll make them a little more accessible to all the different things that our DPW guys, the various types of work that they have to do on a daily basis.
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, I know we're not taking action, but is everybody, comfortable moving this forward Monday evening, this recommendation? Or does anybody have issues that we feel we should be pulling it? I definitely wouldn't want there to be issues that were brought up Monday evening and make this employee feel, that there was an issue. So I guess that's why I'm asking the question.
Personally, I know it doesn't exist now, but I would be more comfortable in having a posting process internally and then externally for any position that opens up in the township. That's my comment.
I agree, and we should, we can work towards that a little bit more when the new website is complete. One of the modules that's going to be offered on the new website will be a job posting as well as board opening positions, and we can have a complete application process right on the website. So that's, I think that should be part of the plan, and we've already started laying the groundwork for it, so.
Yeah, I base my judgment on our DPW supervisor's recommendation on these things. He's been with us 42 years. If he thinks a person is going to be a good candidate and has worked out well, that's pretty much good enough for me.
And I've interviewed Mr. Justice now twice, so
Yeah.
about this position and him in general, and so I'm not just automatically give it to him. I kind of hard vetted myself as well.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right. Again, I'm not asking anybody
Oh.
for, I just don't, wouldn't want discussion to take place Monday evening that then made that employee feel, uncomfortable, so. Okay, all right, moving on then. We have three resolutions on the agenda. First one is that master plan adoption that we delayed because we didn't have the master plan attached, which I have not had the opportunity to completely go through, but I did a little bit. Looks pretty fancy. Good
Well,
work.
you remember that this is a revision of the previous master plan that we did a few years ago. So we took part of the old, and then Beckett and Rader, the company that we hired, planning commission to revise the old plan, and I think they did a phenomenal job. There were a couple of things we asked them. They had it done a couple of times. We asked them to make some changes, to add a couple of things, and they did that. And I think they've given us a good product here.
And this now includes a couple meetings ago, we had a citizen that asked about the community center being added back into the master plan. That's in here now, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that has been added in. We asked Beckett and Rader to John Eichengelli, who handled this, to add some language in there because, originally we were asked to take it out because it referenced the old community center.
Mm-hmm.
So that was confusing because when we did the original master plan, we still had the old community center. So that part of the master plan wasn't part that we had asked Beckett Rader to revise. But when we mentioned to them, we probably should take that out of there because we don't have a community center anymore. And so they said, okay, we'll take that out. Well, then, like mentioned, Jeremy, that some people wanted to know about our plans for a new community center. So we asked them to add some language back into this revised master plan that would have some language in there relative to a new community center. So they did take care of adding that in there for us.
Okay. Then we also have the resolution for the MDNR for the grant application. So we'd be looking at, it's 32,000 for it says in-kind donation matching funds. Is any of that actual like funds that are gonna have to come from the township?
I don't believe it.
No,
We have a commitment letter. I sent the commitment letter over to Brian Strozier, who's working from Bro on this. We have a commitment letter from Vila for $4,000 in cash towards the project. And then the remaining portions, our DPW is going to do some of the work in terms of installing the dock and those kinds of, and the walkway and those kinds of things. And then of course, Rowe is donating their engineering services. So there's enough in-kind work to make up the township's portion of what's necessary.
That
um,
32,500.
Right.
Right.
It's
I
more
think
in
actually
kind,
we'll probably be over that, but that's, that's good.
Okay.
There is one thing while I'm thinking of it, if you could handle for me, Ann, I got an email from Brian Strozier from Rowe, and he wanted to know what the email or the password was for the township, and he listed it, and I have no idea what it is.
The password for what?
I don't know.
For the grant application? Or the,
Yeah, there's something that it's a township login and password.
oh, right.
And
Tammy
I don't know
probably
what
has
it
that.
is.
Yeah.
He has something. He wanted to know if that was correct, and I have no idea.
I
So
will,
can I forward you guys that?
Yeah, I'm
email?
assuming Tammy has it. I know our office, when I was here before, our office had it. Because you had to do everything online.
Yeah.
Sorry.
you're welcome to send that to me and we'll
But you
take care.
can send it to, yeah.
I will send that to you, Mitch. Thanks.
Not a problem. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah.
Hard to apply when you can't get in.
He's
Yeah.
getting ready to submit the grant. Of course, it has to be approved Monday, but I wanted to get that information to him so he can do it.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And then we have the resolution to set the second public hearing. So basically, depending on, I guess, if there's any negative comments or whatever that happens during the first public hearing, then if the board is so inclined to not move forward with setting the second public hearing, we would not pass resolution 2021-09. Okay, so don't anticipate anything, but if we set that public hearing, then we'll get going on the notification and all that. And Nancy has been up to her eyeballs in Board of Review, but she'll jump on running the new rules and everything for that assessment. So we can get everything noticed appropriately. Okay.
Yep.
And then under other, we have Vanette Lake Manager. I guess I'll just jump on this one because it's kind of under mine as well. I mentioned it at the last meeting. The contract with Lake Pro actually expired in 2021. They are willing to, 2020. They're willing to extend for a year. We actually had to do this the last time the special assessment district was renewed. They're willing to extend for another year at the same price, which was $8,000. Vanette Lake Association is happy with their work, so they'd like to extend with them. So I emailed the existing it expired, but I emailed the contract with Lake Pro to our new attorney to have them review and see what we need to draft for like an extension or whatever, but we don't have that back yet. So basically Monday night, I'd like to seek approval to move forward with that. And the attorney drafting whatever it is that they need to do. And maybe we'll have something by Monday that I can email out.
Yes, as long as they're willing to extend it at the same rate. They've done a very good job. They've done a very nice job at the lake to manage it.
They are. And then what would happen again, which is similar to what happened before, is then they would be going out to bid for the herbicide applicator, like, ASAP, because we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on that. But it would say in the language, if for some reason the special assessment district didn't occur, like we didn't go through the full process, that, they wouldn't move forward. I mean, there's language in the RFP that we'll put in there. But we do need to go out to bid fairly quick because we're behind on that.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, then we have the VA door replacement.
That's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, there's a door that having issues, I guess, so.
Aren't those fairly new?
They were done with well, God, how time flies, but yeah, what, 5 years ago now?
Gosh, it's been that long?
Yeah, sadly.
I guess it has, yeah.
Mhm.
I guess it
Yep.
has.
Yep. So. And then we got a few interesting requests, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah. I think on both of these, I think we ought to have some discussion and honestly, and I know as this kind of goes back to some other discussions we've had on other topics. I think we need more structure. So when people ask these requests, we can say, look, you have to tell us a few things for us to be able to give you a good answer. And especially on number 4, I attempted to answer the best I could on that, but again, I can't answer for that individual, and I don't know what their mindset is as far as what they exactly want to do. But I asked for more information and encourage them to attend on Monday to assist us in understanding their request. The one number 3, this fresh air market, again, you know, do you wish, and I think this is something maybe all 7 of you should just think about, do you wish to make commitments on that property for that many multiple dates? You may or may not. I mean, I think that's at least something you should at least contemplate, because obviously if you do commit to that and there are other requests, it will severely limit those requests open calendar opportunities, especially some of the calendar dates that they've requested. Definitely will knock out anybody else from using that same location. So,
And I thought we had, I don't know, I could have sworn we had some kind of a policy that talked about the use. And I feel like, I don't know if it happened like right when we got that first request for the wedding on Furtaw Field. I don't know if you remember that, Bill. You might have even been on the board, Steve, for that one. It was a wedding that we had there, and that was the first time. But like I remember groups wanting to put for domestic violence, abuse, blah, 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 you know, and they wanted to put, I shouldn't say blah, blah, blah for domestic. I didn't mean to belittle the situation. I'm sorry. But I mean, like they wanted to put pinwheels or something for some group, and we turned them down because we didn't, I thought we had a policy that said something about what it could or couldn't be used for, you know, for political reasons and so on. But I haven't, you know, dove into it to see if there is a policy.
Is this for the beach park or for the for Furtaw Field?
Well, for I think anything, it would be any, well, I guess in theory for the political, it would be for the beach park request. On the other one, I had thought, well, if the person has insurance, I guess, I mean, there was always a rule that you had to, you know, be able to have an organized entity that had insurance and so on. And if that person's indicating they have insurance, I guess we would just have to see if it's appropriate, you know, or adequate, but I don't know. I think in the past, we've always tried to funnel them through the chamber and stuff for some of those different things. But
Is there a document that spells this out for people that wish to rent these areas? And is there even a rental fee for Furtaw, or is it just kind of floating out there? Then we can let
well,
people consider.
yeah, like the chamber for a nonprofit use, there wasn't ever a fee to use the field or anything. It was a use agreement, as far as I know. I believe when we rented it for the wedding the one time, there was a fee.
I think it's fee for profit unless you, as the board waive said
Right.
fee.
Yeah, and the only time we can waive fees if it's an event that's, you know, open to the public and a benefit to the entire community. Not
Right.
that's where we have problems in waiving fees on Warrior Pavilion, because it's a smaller venue and it's usually for a specific organization use,
Right.
not for the benefit of the entire township. But generally the events on Furtaw Field, are open to the general public and a benefit to the entire township. But if it's a profit making, I think our policy has been that if it's a profit making venture, then we charge, we charge a fee for use of the field. I don't think it's much. It seems to me for the wedding, it was like $250 or
Yeah,
something.
I think it was under 300 or something. And yeah, they had a liquor, they had to have a license or something or insurance because of the alcohol, but.
Right. Yeah, they have to show proof of insurance and name the township as additional insured. That's why it's
Right.
usually better if they can work it through the Chamber of Commerce, then the Chamber of Commerce makes a request and then they have their insurance, established with us and everything. But
Do you think we should defer this request for the rental of First Off Field to the chamber, or is this something we should take up and carry the torch for?
In the past, we've always handled Furtaw Field that we used to have a use agreement. I don't know, do we still have it where the chamber actually handled reservations of the band shell? Are they still doing that for us or no?
Not that I'm sure of. No.
No?
no, the Chamber's been a little out of whack here the last year or two.
Yeah, it kind
Yeah.
of fell. They actually just hired just FYI, they just hired a new chamber director. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're gonna, be ramping up now, but it has been a little bit of a turmoil for the last year and a half, for sure.
Well, as far as this request for the fresh air markets, personally, I don't have a problem. She has the dates specified as long as it doesn't conflict. Because after the fiasco we've had with the double booking on there, I'm a little nervous now about, somebody keeping track of the dates that we're allowing these things to go on here. But I think, it's good to have activities on the field. It's just sitting there. And if we can book some of these things. Now, I don't know if, I guess I'd like to hear what the other board members think. If we want to book all of these ahead of time, and then does that restrict us on any of the other events that we normally hold on Furtaw Field? Those dates? I mean,
Right.
look at those dates and maybe if we could, approve like the first two for right now, and then she could come back and request for a couple of the others later on or something.
Do we have any documentation that specifies, what, cancellation policies on both sides? I mean, do we have any kind of contract with these people that
Oh.
kind of gives us a little bit of a right to move things around so that we don't get stuck in the situation again? I mean, I'm sure we're going to work on scheduling issues and fixing all of those things. But in the future, if we've got a little, a use that is, we're going to rent it out for an open air market for $250, but somebody else wants to come in and utilize the entire field for a massive event, do we have the ability to go and say, look here, we appreciate that you guys wanted to be here, but we're going to have to cancel for you so we can do a larger event that will, be better for the community at large, and we can move you to a different weekend. But do we have any documentation that kind of covers, everybody's rights as far as how this is going to be rented out and
Short answer would be
reserved?
no.
No.
Well,
It-
all right.
It's been on a case by case basis, which I find uncomfortable. I'll give you a better example. If, let's just say that you granted one of these dates to the fresh air market, and I'm just making up a scenario, and there happens to be, not that I'm saying this is, there's a water main or something underneath a portion of that property, and we must dig it up. Okay, it breaks. Then that event may have to be canceled. And
Right.
I don't want us, meaning the township, to be necessarily responsible for that. Things do happen. And to me, part of that, and I think for going forward, is maybe some event insurance on some of the people that want to do these events, just knowing, hey, if something were to happen, we're not necessarily the townships on the hook for all that. So.
Is that something that that you feel comfortable, starting up some kind of paperwork on, Mitch, so that we
I'm
can?
kind of already working on that. So as we speak, because I'm this, especially now these kind of newer requests, they give me pause as to, again, I just want to take each of them fairly and give them a fair ability to meet whatever requirements we ask of them. And then for them to have very straightforward expectations from us of what we expect from them. And
We should have I mean, it seems to me it should be a contract either way, whether there's a fee involved or not. I mean, I know when the chamber would make a request, the township, and they asked for DPW to do this and blah, whatever. We agreed to it, but then we had a kind of a disclaimer on there that indicated, our intent is to help out, but if something else happens in the community and it pulls our DPW, because we're not charging for the service, it pulls people away from that, we're gonna have to, go do that instead, kind of a deal. So, I mean, we should have some kind of an agreement one way or the other. If somebody is inviting, if somebody wants to take space up that then other public is not quote unquote allowed to use freely. I mean, if we've given it to a fresh air market and then a group of 10 graduates were in town for the weekend and they wanted to do a pickup game at Furtaw Field and they were all planning on going down there to play, but we've, rented it quote unquote to another group so they can't use that. I mean, it's a public use field, which is great to have that issue, many people want to use it, but I'm just saying it seems like we should have an agreement in place.
I think one of the things that we've not talked about is the exclusivity provision. Are these requests absolute exclusive use of all of, say, those properties? Or
right, that's a huge field.
Or let's just use number 3, that example. Are they desirous of a portion of that field, but would be amenable to someone else also using the field at the same time? I mean, that's a question I think we should ask them. Are you asking for absolute exclusivity? And I think our fee should be maybe structured in that way too. Or are you looking to use, 25% of it?
Right. Well, even that Blue Ribbon group that had some of the events, I mean, they quote unquote had Furtaw Field, but they literally used the front part. Maybe, I don't even know if it was a quarter of the field. I don't even think it was that, they used like in front of the landscaping areas and then just behind. So, I mean, on one event, I'm saying, but yeah, I guess that it's a huge field to try to spread out a event. I wouldn't think you'd want the whole field, but that's just my
And I guess since we're talking about all this, I have sent, after looking over that whole situation, I've sent answers to both parties in regards to the August date. I am awaiting an answer from one of the parties of the choices that I gave them. So we will see what happens with that, but one way or another, I could tell you from definitive that the Rock Fest will take place on that property. The question is whether or not they may have to share a small portion of it with another party.
Another thing that comes up is that they're asking for you guys, or for us to
Your party, you guys.
I know,
mister.
I'm so suckered in.
Yeah.
They're asking for us to turn on the power. Do we meter that power? I'm assuming that the electric company has it metered. Do we charge for that power? Do we calculate it after the usage? Is there a deposit to turn it on?
So that's an interesting question. I will tell you that at least from my view here versus other places I have worked, we seem to be kind of lax about that. Like, well, I guess you could use the power, or I guess maybe not. The power is metered at one point, not on per box. I would tell you that let's just use a more traditional, like a fair type thing where there's food trucks and vendors, and each of them are using power. We would charge them per use of pedestal. basically a flat rate, because it's so hard to meter that stuff because it comes at 1 meter. So we would charge all those vendors. We're like, look, you could charge them whatever your fee is for them to be there, but we want an additional, to cover the electrical costs. Or if you have water there, same thing. Because if you don't, then, especially if they're for profit, who just paid for that?
That's right.
Well,
The taxpayers did.
well, if I live on the north part of the township somewhere, I didn't profit from that weekend. Maybe I wasn't even home that weekend. Maybe I was in Hale the whole weekend. I don't know. But I want them to pay their fair share of that. And again, if they make great money on it, fantastic. But I definitely don't want to assist them in making profit. Now, in a nonprofit sense, that's a whole nother matter. And what I have had forms before where the boards would say, look, we will waive your fee. And I've had boards that say we would ask that you maybe contribute towards the electric a little bit to kind of offset some of that cost. Especially, I remember summertime events or things like that. The electric costs can get kind of high if it's 3-4 days in a row. And I've had a lot of groups go, okay, sure, we could do that. We could take all of our proceeds and cut you a check for at least a portion of that back to kind of offset some of that, or you could waive it all. But at least you'd have those options based on the proposals that you were given.
Here's another question. Do we know if the power, if I walk out to that field right now and I plug my boom box into one of those outlets, is it going to get power?
I tried that on 2 boxes and they were off. So they may have been at some further pedestal box, their major switch had been set off, but I'm not certain of that at all of those pedestal points.
So right now we don't know if power is turned on or not, or who turns it on. Do we know who turns it on?
My guess is probably Public Works has access to opening those boxes and flicking them back on and off. But I'm just telling you for my own, I tried a couple of them that I found that I could gain a plug access, and I could not get power at that time.
You're talking about the pedestals and the landscaping.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Because then we have big power at the back that like Schmidt Amusement taps into for Paul Bunyan days.
Yeah, I think those can be turned off.
Yeah, those are usually turned off, and I think there's a switch that they usually control those landscaping things that we mainly just use for Christmas lights. But
yeah, the things in the past that we wanted to keep away from for renting out like Furtaw Field or other township property is to when the people are requesting help from like the DPW and those kinds of things, we try and stay away from that because we have a limited crew that usually gets us into overtime and all kinds of things. So we try and stay away from. We like the events like this Blue Ribbon, for instance, where they provide everything. They bring in their own porta potties, everything that they need. And my thought would be that we have, a fee to rent. For instance, we're talking about Furtaw Field, so we have a fee to rent the field. And generally, when we rent it, it's understood that they have exclusive use of the field for that day or two or whatever it is that they're going to be there. But then if the request is that they need electric and water, then we simply have another rate that goes along with that, so that it's X number of dollars. Trying to meter something and figure that out and then pass that along, I think we need to think about that in advance and just say, well, if you want to rent the field, it's $300. If you want the power and lights for a weekend, it's an additional $300 or $400 or whatever, we would come up with a fee. But I think that would be a better structure to simply have the fee established if they want to have, if it's an event where they need power and electric or power and water or whatever.
Right. I was just thinking about the fact, like Schmidt Amusements comes in and runs their whole show. We're talking serious power now, as opposed to, Art on the Beach or the little art, the Blue Ribbon people come in and want a couple of light bulbs on in their tents. I could see an administrative fee to turn it on and off that would help cover the you know, the cost of having the DPW guy go down there, or gal, whichever the case may be, of course.
Yeah, I think we just need to figure out a fee for the electric per day, and then depending on how many days they're there, that's what the fee is gonna be, and it's well established, everybody knows what it is, and
It's going to have to be a sliding scale though, because again, you can't say that, well, we're going to charge $5,000 for electric usage for that weekend because that's what Schmidt Amusement charges or is going to use for, you know, a smaller event. So it would have to be some kind of sliding scale, like how much power do you think you're going to need? How many, you know, what are you going to hook up to it? What kind of voltage do you need? Do you need, you know, 110, 220, 440? Do we need three phase? What do you need? And that fee is going to have to be adjusted a little bit, because it wouldn't be fair to say, or it wouldn't be fair to go the other way either and say, well, we're only going to charge, you know, a $50 administration fee and then $100 for electricity, and then Schmidt Amusement comes in and uses $5K worth of electricity. You know, I mean, I think some time's going to have to be put into this to really get a fee structure set.
I would be interested to know if we ever charged Schmidt Electric for
Yeah, I mean, it'd be an
too.
easy answer. We can check on that for sure. I mean, number one,
Yeah.
Bill would know if we did any kind of meter read, but then we can just pull an old and just reach out to the chamber on that. I don't think they did though, if I remember right. I could be wrong. It's been known to happen before, but that I've been wrong. But I don't think we charged. I don't think they paid.
I don't either, but it'd be interesting to find out if we could.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably try
I know
to-
Bill used to freak out because they would hook some pretty crazy crap onto the panel.
Oh yeah, because they come in like with just a bare copper wire tip,
Yeah.
and they screw things down and they're
Yeah.
hooking stuff up, and we're all looking at them like, are you guys licensed to hook up to stuff
Yeah.
like that?
And
You
the
know?
answer is no.
And if the answer is no, I mean, should we even continue to
Right.
allow them to do it, or do you have to pay for an electrician to hook that stuff up so that you don't electrocute yourself and then we're held liable because it happened on our field?
I think it's
I have
gotten
had
better.
I have had instances where what they'll do, carnivals and I'll call them more traveling types, they'll come in and they'll basically destroy boxes and
Yeah.
homemade wire in.
Yeah.
And what we have done in our agreements is if we find any of that, you will be charged a fine for that and all the repair costs to put that back to the way it should be.
Right. And I mean, if they hook it up wrong and they draw too much power from one area, they could absolutely melt one of those boxes.
Mhm.
I
And
mean, they
brown
could
out
blow a
half-
transformer and
brown
blow
out
out.
half the township.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have actually. I remember them getting better with time, but it was a rough start for sure. But yeah, but so
Well, these are good
yeah.
points. This is exactly, I'd say this is why work sessions work nicely when we have these discussions. So
Right.
Yeah. Because we're
Well,
getting a
and
little
I-
off
you know,
topic, but it's necessary to
I
talk
mean,
about these things.
I think that I mean, I know Jan. I mean, she's used to volunteer at the chamber. I think it was her idea to come up with the clothing bags over at the Rotary Park. You know, people if they need gloves or whatever. It's very community minded. I think she's actually Tony. I'm gonna mess up his last name. He changed his last name when he got married. I think it's his mom, if I remember right. But she's, you know, she's got some great ideas, and I know she's just trying to bring a big group together. But I guess I'm kind of under Bill's thought process too about reserving too far out here on dates for the whole summer. When she's not really sure what she's got all lined up yet, I guess, and maybe how much of the field. But I think, you know, it'd be great to get some action going back on. And I don't know if the chamber is going to do the art on the beach yet or not this year. You know, I don't know what's going on there. So we definitely want to make sure we have functions going on.
So.
But
We talked about the second request.
not really. I don't think we talked about it, but yeah, I'm not,
That one seems to be loaded.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you some of the questions I asked them to try to answer from my knowledge, just in general. If you sell any product, meaning food of any kind, you're gonna need a license. And I said, that's a health department question. Cause you're gonna need, you know, obviously certain facilities and cleanliness and all that and serve safe and.
Yeah, if
so
they
that's one
sell,
question.
right.
And then the use of the pavilion, I kind of take that as I do any type of pavilion in you know, anywhere. If you want to use it and it's not reserved and you get there first and you start using it, someone else comes along, they want to use it, it's not exclusive. But if you want exclusive use of it, then you better ask. And we may or may not have a fee attached to that for that purpose. So on that shelter request, that would be as well.
I don't think in the past we've ever taken reservations per se on that. It's a first come, first serve is my
Okay.
recollection. That being said, somebody would go there at, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning and spread their stuff to save it for a function they were going to have later in the day. So I'm not saying it's the best policy in place, but I think that's how it operated in the past.
And
He's
again, if they
also
want-
asking, yeah, to use bathrooms. And I mean,
and we
yeah.
are not we're not scheduled to energize our bathrooms by that time.
right, usually May 1st is the first time. So
That's
definitely
correct.
we don't want to be firing them up any earlier than need be.
Mhm. Especially if the weather turns.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, my thought on that is that she's not really requesting anything of us other than the idea of having hot dogs and popcorn. Like Mitch said, that's if she wanted to bring in a food truck, and we do have in our ordinance allow food trucks, they could get a 1-day permit to have a food truck there. But to sell and provide hot dogs, now, you know, that's a little tricky because families come there and, you know, grill hot dogs, but
If you give them away, then it's no problem.
I was gonna say they
Yeah.
can give them away because the
Everything has to be given.
the 4th
yeah,
of July
that's a
community
different
picnic, they just
situation.
give things away.
So I think as long as we understand and let her know that, you know, the bathrooms will not be open by April 24th. And that the pavilion is simply first come, first serve. I will tell you that in the past, there is a policy. There is a policy in place as it relates to using township property. And the most specific one had to do with Warrior Pavilion, but it also touched on some other things. And we were in the process of revising that policy. And when we got to the part about the pavilions at the various parks, Ratliff Beach Park, it got so complicated to try and figure out how you would reserve that and charge somebody for it. And then they go down and find out there's a whole family having a reunion there. And then they're going to call the police in to kick those people out. It became so complicated to try and figure out how we would word a policy to cover that. You can do it. I mean, no question, we could have written something, but it seemed to us at the time it would have possibly created some really ugly situations. So
Yeah, hard to enforce.
we opted to not deal with that at all. Just leave it a first come, first serve kind of thing. So.
Well, here's another question about that. If they do, so when we say first come, first served, that doesn't mean that if they come in there and they set up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they take over the entire pavilion area with all their stuff and, and their event is at noon and a bunch of kids want to run in there and sit down and eat at those tables or whatever at 10 a.m., they can't stop them. Right. I mean, it's public use. So if those kids want to come in there, then they have to allow it.
Yeah.
And the other
been
thing
arguments.
is, I'm sure that, we'll have to leave that to our,
Yeah,
our
there's
police
been
department to
arguments
deal
and
with
same
that,
thing
but-
when, somebody wants to have a wedding on the pier. You have to, our grant guidelines were universal access. You cannot close it off to the public. The only time we close it off to the public is for the 4th of July fireworks. And that's for safety. They can't go out there. But even if somebody wants to hold a wedding, you can't, if somebody, wants to still walk out during the wedding, you can't stop them.
It's extremely rude, but you can't stop them.
Yeah. But
And the other thing was about these porta potties. If we're not going to open the restrooms for them, are we going to allow them to bring porta potties into the beach park and set them up for areas that they're not renting?
No.
Sure, why not?
I mean, because if they bring them in, then anybody can use them, right? It's
That's
not just for their
correct.
event.
That's
They have
correct.
to be, they're going to have to be aware that, you know, I mean, if somebody that is on the opposing side, if you will, wants to go use your porta potty, you will let them, or you don't get to put them there at all.
That's correct.
Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Well, I think April 24th, there's not going to be a whole lot of people down there on the beach, you know, swimming. So anybody that's going to be there is probably going to be there for that event.
Right. Which means that they're all, if anybody has to use the restroom, then that's the only ones that are available. So,
Right.
and she doesn't specify whether or not they're going to sell those snacks and soft drinks or not, or if it's just a handout. So we'd have to get more information on that one.
Jeremy, we used to say if the event is free and not exclusive and they put porta potties there, we used to call it the Metamuscle Clause. That no matter what happens, anyone that needs it shall have the ability to use it.
Oh, man. All right. I like that clause.
Yeah, because I will tell you, I've had some very early spring events, and just a small story. I had a woman that said, I was so desperate when I saw the bathroom, it kind of triggered me. I rushed to go use it, but then I was afraid because I wasn't part of this group's activity. She said, but Mother Nature told me I had to do what I had to do.
Yeah, can't deny that call.
We got kind of complaints about it. And then she said, well, you know, I take Metamucil, and that's where the Metamucil clause came in. So we're like, no, if it's there and it's an event like that, anyone can use it if they so need it. So.
Awesome.
All right, well, I mean, do we need more information for Monday, or what is the thought of the board? I mean,
on this one, like, you know,
either one of them.
Like Mr. Palmer said, for the beach park, I don't really think that, I mean, they don't need permission to bring porta potties out there from what we're talking about here. If they want to bring a porta potty, they can.
We would coordinate their placement.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to like deep into the sand.
I would say, I was going to say, I personally would think we would want.
I'm going to drop them right in the park. So.
Yeah, I don't think we should just let anybody drop off a porta potty without us knowing about it, you know, and
we would direct where they would be.
Yeah, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yep. And then other than that, if they want to sell the hot dogs and whatnot, then yes, they do need to get their vending license and pass all the health inspections and prove that. If they're going to pass them out for free, then it's just a party.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody else wants to walk in there and sit in that pavilion, they will allow it.
Yep.
And I guess clarification on what are they calling a pavilion? Are they calling the band shell a pavilion, or are they calling the pavilion at the south end of the park a pavilion?
I'm making the assumption we're talking about the band shell area.
Oh, here's no. Are they going to need power? Are they going to want to set up any speakers and stuff? Are they going to have speakers? Is the band shell a rented thing? I think previously in the conversation we talked about renting the pavilion out, or the band shell, if you will. Is that something that can be reserved?
It used to be coordinated through the chamber. Yes. I don't know if it's those or not.
The board has that ability, I think, to do what it feels it should. And again, I guess it depends on what this person's answers are.
Right.
To these questions.
And
well, I guess if that person could be on the meeting Monday night, then we could probably ask those questions.
Yes, and we did invite them. So.
And then for the Furtaw Field one, yeah, I mean, I'm, you know, they're probably not going to use that much power, and they want to turn it on. You know, if the board wants to do that, I'm okay with it. But we do need to set up some kind of sliding fee schedule for the amount of power usage. You know, with some kind of I mean, there should be some kind of meter read before and after, just so that we can see how much power was used and ensure that our sliding scale is affecting payment of that electric bill that's not coming from public money. That's my opinion on that.
Okay. All right. Want to move on?
Yeah.
Sure.
Please.
5 o'clock.
Just kidding.
No, we're doing
Just
fine.
kidding.
It's
All
5
right.
o'clock
So
somewhere.
last one under other is Rrc Annual Meeting. I don't see anything in the packet about it, but.
Just that the request will be to hold the meeting on April 1st at 6 p.m. And this kind of ties in with something that I will probably add under other, which is the the future board and commission meetings and the getting a declaration of emergency so we can hold hybrid meetings. So I just actually, while we've been talking, got basically a 3-page ordinance from our legal counsel to enable us to do that. And is kind of what I've been kind of talking to all of you about with the state of Michigan's provisions that you can't have more than 25 participants at a meeting, and there's a 6-foot distance radius between individuals, and the Open Meetings Act, which again, so in the scenario of what happens when if I find this a place, which I calculated a method to use a library to 25, but what happens when participant 26 shows up? I can't tell them no, go away.
Did you talk to MIC TV about having the extra monitors installed so that we can spread everybody out?
But this is the real issue, is that if we held it, say, at the library, and I had 25 participants in the building at that time, and number 26 comes to the door, under the Open Meetings Act, I can't really deny them that. And so everyone's around the state is in somewhat of a conundrum. What do you do? And so based on what we see as far as our Zoom participation numbers, I would anticipate participant 26 plus to attempt to attend the meeting. So what this ordinance would do would allow us to have a hybrid meeting format, and that would allow for the board to meet in person and then have the public be able to still meet in a virtual sense until such time as the state relaxes these rules and guidelines so that we can allow a more densely populated meeting to occur in the structures that we have. So, and again, I'll have to work with MIC TV about cameras and other things of that nature. It's just, we need to get the provision in place that would allow for hybrid meetings to take place.
The president of the MIC TV board told me that he sent you an email discussing the hybrid meetings and the additional costs that would be associated with setting up the electronics to do that. Did you get that email?
I did.
Okay.
So what I was waiting on is for the attorneys to give me a document that I could actually create a hybrid meeting. So this will, like I said, he just sent it to me, and I'm glancing at it right now. This will suffice to get us that ability to hold meetings of that type.
Can you forward that to me so I can review it as well? Pretty please.
Yeah, well, I'll send it out to the board. So,
okay.
Is there a reason you would want to have a hybrid meeting like that as opposed to just the same kind of Zoom meetings we've been holding?
Well, there is some question as to whether there is some question.
The reason I say that is that the previous board tried to hold a hybrid meeting like that with MIC TV there. It was a disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just flat out a disaster. And I know, we have a few problems with the Zoom meetings, but for the most part, I think they come off relatively smooth, and it just seems if we are going to go to the trouble of claiming this emergency resolution, I don't see why we wouldn't just continue to have the Zoom meetings like we've had in the past. And then when it's such a time that we're able to meet without the restrictions, because the point you make, Mitch, is very good. You can't turn anybody away from a public meeting. And the library is a pretty big place, but by the time you spread out, and you have to understand there's at least 12 to 13 people at the meeting as just part of the meeting. The board, yourself, the MIC TV guys. Then on top of that, if you have Rick Freeman, Todd Dickerson, that's 2 more. So that's 15, 16. It doesn't, now you're only talking about allowing, 10 or 12 people into the meeting. So, but we have set up in the past where we are in one room and they put up a monitor in another part of the building. But you know, after hours, the bulk of the library is usually closed off. So it just creates a lot of problems trying to maneuver around these requirements. And I would like nothing better than to meet in person. I'm not trying to, you know, extend this any longer than we need to, because it doesn't work quite as well as it does seem to be to meet in person. But given the guidelines and the situations that we have, it just seems to me that if we are going to declare an emergency here, that we just continue with the Zoom meetings the way we've been doing.
Well, I guess my question is, are we allowed to continue with the Zoom meetings, or are they requiring that we go back to regular meetings and meeting in person?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's what I thought was happening.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that they're giving us the option, which is why we're looking at a hybrid method so that we can
Yeah.
conform to the 25
Right.
people. And is the 25 people in one room, or is it in
No.
one meeting?
No, in the,
One
if they're in that, like at the library, if they're in that building, they have the ability to be a participant. I've already
Right.
explored that option. So every person that's in that building counts as a participant towards that meeting.
So if we rented a stadium that seats 150 million people, we can still only have 25 people in there, according to the way that they've written
We'll
the
just-
resolution now.
We'll just
Yeah.
move, it's a simple answer. We'll just move the meeting to the casino. And we'll be
Hey!
all set.
So,
I
'Cause
second
we can
that.
have as many people there and we'll just spread out
Yep.
next to each other on the slot machines and we're all good to go. We can be there fine. Sorry.
and
I
I hate
love
to say, you know,
I love
we're
it.
having to, ourselves and other municipalities are having to react accordingly. Because I hate to say, between the state and the Open Meetings Act, there's this kind of meeting of trying to satisfy both sides. And I'll be honest with you, we may even, in the virtual hybrid approach, after talking to MICTV, we may even have to do something other than Zoom. It may have to be some other format. I don't know.
I'm
But
just thinking of
Also there
like,
be.
yeah, I mean,
I'm
well,
not,
we've
I'm
got,
not certain at this time, but I mean, maybe it's Microsoft Teams, maybe it's some other method. I don't know. But it didn't leave us with much viable means. The only other option that's out there, and this is something I already sent something to the state saying, look, the other option was, well, you could meet outdoors. And I said, look,
great idea.
I said, we are located in an area that at this time, in the mid portion of the day, it's below freezing. It was like 29 degrees earlier today. I can't honestly say, how would I meet outdoors at night and light it and amplify all of you as individuals? And I'd have to put lights on all of you so that all these people who are spread 6 feet radius from each other in some, I don't know, large field could see you and hear you. And I'm like, logistically, that's not even possible. I mean, you're asking something that's really not possible. So I said, you don't leave us much choice other than to try to have a hybrid meeting. And this also applies to the Planning Commission, it applies to the EIC, it applies to all these different commissions. They're going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have to figure out a way to have a hybrid approach with probably just their board in place and maybe, like say, maybe one other individual. And then the rest of it is being broadcast by electronic means. So there's still open and fair communication with the public.
Still put us in a sticking point, though, if somebody doesn't want to attend virtually and we're already at the 25 person limit. I mean, it's a contradiction. And I mean, we may have to, it may boil down to, we have to pick which side we're going to stick to. And I would stick to the OMA side myself, but I guess we'll anxiously await your reply, Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah.
I think I just sent that out.
Well, and I think we need to reach out to our legislative powers that be that we did for the border review. We had some issues with trying to decide how we were going to operate with the border review, and they finally, pushed some avenues there. So
Yeah.
I think
So
that
I did send to everyone, and I'll have the packet updated with this proposed ordinance. So you should receive it in your email already.
All right, well, then we are done with the meeting agenda. Or the board packet. So consider need for follow-up additional information. I think we'll see if we can get some answers from Bill on electricity at Furtaw Field. Have we
Yeah.
metered it in the past?
Yeah.
Um,
And I don't know if this is appropriate right this second, but just a notification that today, by the date, I have received 2 replies for the Township Legal Services RFP, one from a Timothy R. Friel and one from White, Wojak, and Curtis. So I will begin the process of making sure that they've met all the criteria of the RFP to qualify to be examined.
Is the RFP process closed at this point?
Yes,
Or, okay, so we only got 2 replies?
that is correct. So.
Okay. Any other additional information or follow-up? Anyone?
For follow-up, did you get any more bids for the HVAC in the treasurer's office, Mr. Mitchell?
We have one, and we think we're going to get at least one more.
So that'll be on the next meeting, not this
Yeah,
Monday, but the
not this
following
one,
2 weeks.
because we want to at least try to have 2.
Sure.
We had a couple vendors that said not really interested. We're too booked. So
Right on.
So we're going out and looking for some others. And actually, we're doubling back on the ones that applied to Old Orchard and kind of asking them again. What if you got this bid and you could do both? Would you consider doing 2 at once? So
Cool.
All right. Are you guys ready for me to open public comment? We have 2 public members.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're to public comment. I'm just we have Rosemary. Rosemary, do you have any public comment? Just asked you to unmute, or you could use the raise hand feature if you wanted. Or send a little message in a bottle. No. Thanks, Rosemary, for participating. All right, Brian, I believe it's Brian Haley, 739-5729. Brian, did you have any public comment?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey.
Okay, yeah, there's a little delay in there when you go to unmute it. Concerning the Usda, what we were talking about pollution earlier, and my focus is on Usda, and this has bothered me for quite a while. It's not on you guys, but the deal of it is, with all of our water surge in our land, and we know all about pollution, like you were talking about earlier. Well, we know some about pollution, but we do know our water, and that it has a south direction. It's heading straight towards our Usda intake. Not to be an alarmist, but when you look, you realize that's where we get our fresh water for all of Taos. You guys know all this, and Oscoda, Greenbush, surrounding areas, thousands upon thousands. But when I look at the data, we don't have data for Usda testing on that water. We do know we have these pollutants in the Great Lake. I mean, we don't know where they came from. No one's trying to do this. But what we don't have is data points. We have sporadic testing there. In fact, we've spiked. Palmer was talking earlier about parts per trillion, and the EGLE wants to go to parts per billion. All right. Now we spiked at one point down there at Usda. It wasn't that long ago. I don't have it written down in front of me, but you guys can look it up, where we were over the 71 parts per trillion. In fact, when now that was on the treated side. That wasn't even on the raw side. Now, all they did was test for 2 more months, I believe it was. and that was it. In fact, the following year, they didn't even test at the same point in the year when the pressures are different on the earth. And we can understand these things. You guys are smart. What we're not doing is we're not doing monthly testings on that water. And it's not about ownership. We don't own it. Department of Defense did this, the United States government, Air Force, but it does trickle down to us because you're the owners of the land. So if we're not putting our data points together on a monthly basis, we should have been doing this 10 years ago, minimum 5 years ago, but we're still not doing it. The cost for these tests, for total accredited tests, is $7,000 per year. You get your raw tested going in, you get your treated coming out. It's not to be an alarmist, it's to have your data points. None of us can predict the future. Step back a little bit. You don't know if this is going to go to litigation in 5 years, 10 years. There's no way anyone can predict that. But what I can predict is if it does get to that point, and I'm not wishing for it, it could get to that point, you're going to have nothing. You have no data points. You cannot go back in time and get those. I've affirmed that through EGLE. I've affirmed that through Usda itself. We're talking $7,000 a year. You're not owning the problem by doing the testing. What you are doing is looking out for not just our community, Taos and everyone that's hooked up to it. Hey, everything will come back fine, but at least you'll have your data points, and you have to have those. You have sporadic now. It's unacceptable at this point in time. I'm saying to you as respectfully as I can. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
All right, you too, Brian. Okay. All right, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So
Or we don't
moved.
need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, bye.
All
Enjoy
right.
See
your
ya.
time with your family, Bill.
Thank you. We
Have a good
will.
weekend.
Mai tais are waiting.
All
Hey,
right.
for me as well. Captain Mai Tais. Ah. See you, Ian.
Bye.
Good day.